Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at a 2028 futuristic presidential election scenario in which what if Donald Trump were to endorse JD Vance, his own VP candidate that he selected, and that JD Vance would have to go up against the strongest, in my opinion, the best Democratic candidate in Josh Shapiro. But before we get started with the map, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content, press the like button, share this video if you are interested. Don't forget we do have memberships. You can find the links to that in the description section. So in this scenario, number one, Donald Trump were to endorse JD Vance, he would win the primary very narrowly. It would be close, which is why I think that would actually hurt the GOP chances of actually winning the 2028 election. If Donald Trump were to, as a scenario, which I think is very realistic, I think this very well can happen. If Trump does endorse JD Vance in the future 2028 election, I think that actually will hurt Republicans. Like, most of the party really wants to move on from the Trumpism. And if JD Vance narrowly wins, I mean, it would be a split GOP. What I'm trying to say is it will be divided, which is why I think JD Vance going up against the strongest Democratic candidate, Josh Shapiro, I do think that would actually boost Democrats' chances. And so let's begin with the likely states for both of these candidates, starting off with Josh Shapiro. I think Pennsylvania, obviously his home state, is going to be likely for him. That's a no-brainer. Even though it's typically a swing state, this is a state that he literally won by double digits, I believe around 14 percentage points. The highest record-breaking for any governor in the state of Pennsylvania, I believe. And with that being said, it's not going to be close. And no matter who the candidate is on the Republican side, if it's going to be Josh Shapiro as the Democratic nominee, I think he's absolutely going to destroy any Republican, unless it's Glenn Youngkin. If the Republican candidate is Glenn Youngkin, then I do think Republicans do stand somewhat of a chance in the Rust Belt. But I do think Josh Shapiro will lock down Pennsylvania. I won't be shocked if he gets close to 10%. I think he would be able to get high single digits of maybe 8 to 9 percentage points. And in his best case scenario, he would be able to get past 10 points, as he did when he defeated Doug Mastriano. And then another likely state for Josh Shapiro is going to be New Hampshire. This state's actually getting bluer. Kamala Harris is doing better in this state in the polls in more than any other swing state. New Hampshire is more blue than Michigan is, even Wisconsin, and even Minnesota, surprisingly. So with that being said, it has a lot of college-educated voters, and I do think, therefore, Josh Shapiro would do tremendous among college-educated voters, and I just think New Hampshire would really like Josh Shapiro as their president rather than someone like JD Vance. And then I also do think that the state of Virginia is not going to be contested at all. Josh Shapiro is just that good of a candidate, in my opinion. You can think that I am overrating him, but I truly do believe Josh Shapiro, if he were to run and win the nomination, he will be president one day. I think that could very well be potentially in 2028. I just think he's that good of a candidate. Virginia is going to get bluer if Josh Shapiro is the nominee for the Democrats. I think he would be able to get close to maybe even 10 points. Especially against JD Vance, who, by the way, before the debate, was one of the most unpopular, if not the most unpopular, vice president in terms of the polling that we've seen, more than any other vice president in history. That was prior. Now, after the debate, he did gain some ground, obviously doing significantly better. But I do think that there could be a scenario in which Trump does endorse JD Vance if he likes what he does within the 4 years with Donald Trump. If Trump were to get into the White House, obviously, for his final 4 years, let's say Trump does like what JD Vance has done with him more than someone like Mike Pence, then he would come out with endorsement in 2028. And then the GOP would literally be split and divided, and the Democrats would be united with Josh Shapiro. That's just my theory. So let me know if you agree with that in the comment section down below. I also do think Minnesota is going to get bluer, especially the suburbs, Minneapolis, and the women vote can really turn out well for someone like Josh Shapiro. And then the likely states for the other candidate in this scenario, in this case JD Vance, I think is going to be the state of Ohio and Iowa. Now, I usually have Iowa safe for the GOP. I expect Donald Trump to get it by over 10 points this time, cracking double digits. But I do think Josh Shapiro is just that good of a candidate. Now, I'm not saying J.D. Vance is that bad. That's why Iowa is likely instead of safe. It's because Josh Shapiro is just that good of a candidate is what I'm trying to say. And obviously, he's going to win Ohio by a sizable amount. It's not going to be close at all. Obviously, it's literally his home state. He's the senator in the state. So it's going to be likely for him. He would get in the high single digits. Obviously, that's a no-brainer. I think that's the only likely states for him. And now moving on to the lean states for both these candidates, starting off with Josh Shapiro. I do think Nevada will be lean for him. I actually think Josh Shapiro will hold on to Washoe County for the Democrats, which I currently have Trump actually flipping that county. I just think J.D. Vance won't be able to get that high turnout that I am guessing or I'm predicting Trump will because he's so unpopular. And this scenario obviously will be the strongest ticket, Democrats' best case scenario in Josh Shapiro. I do think Josh Shapiro would do tremendous in Nevada, especially going up against J.D. Vance, which I just don't see how he can somewhat possibly do good in Nevada, especially Clark County, the Vegas area, Stronghold County, obviously, in which I do expect Trump to do better than in previous years, which is why I have him currently possibly winning Nevada, even though I do still see Kamala possibly winning the state of Nevada for the Democrats. I just don't think J.D. Vance is that good of a candidate to do well, especially going up against the Democrats' strongest ticket scenario in Josh Shapiro. I think he's going to have skyrocket turnout in the Vegas area, possibly close to Obama numbers. I mean, it seems like I'm overrating Josh Shapiro, but I think he's that good. And then as for Arizona, I also think this will be lean for the Democrats, Josh Shapiro, in this case scenario. I just don't see a possibility in which J.D. Vance pulls off of winning Arizona. I just don't see it. Now, this state is getting bluer. The reason why it doesn't seem like that in this election is because Kamala Harris literally is the Democratic candidate. In my opinion, she's weak, and obviously she didn't have a primary contest. That's why she didn't even receive a single vote. So I think that literally gives Donald Trump the advantages. He also has a bunch of issues to run on, like immigration, obviously, and the border, which Kamala can't address whatsoever. Now, Josh Shapiro is the complete opposite of that. I think he can do very well among the McCain-style voters. People on the right call them neocons. That's what I'm talking about. And then independents, undecideds on election day, which I don't think there will be that many undecided. I think a lot of them would probably break for Josh Shapiro very early on. And then he's definitely going to do way better in Maricopa County than Joe Biden did. And Biden had won Maricopa by 2 points. So I think Arizona's, in the future especially, is going to get very blue. This is a left trendy state. Democrats keep gaining in terms of new voters. You take a look at 2022. The midterms, they elected a Democratic governor, Katie Hobbs, for the first time since 2009. And statewide, overall, it's really Democratic. You take a look at the Senate. They also have a Democratic senator, and Mark Kelly. So don't be shocked if Arizona goes blue in the future elections. Now, in this election for 2024, it's very different. I have Trump winning it by a couple points because Kamala is a weak candidate on the Democratic side. Now, Josh Shapiro, I think, would be the best case for the Democrats possibly to run as the top of the ticket in 2028. And especially if J.D. Vance happens to be the Republican nominee because he receives a Trump endorsement, it's going to be very narrowly, which means that the Republican Party will be split up and divided. And let's say like 30% of the GOP wanted Ron DeSantis. I mean, the same thing could happen for the Democrats, but I think Josh Shapiro will unite the Democratic Party because that's literally what he does. Josh Shapiro wins over not only independents and Democrats, but also Republicans, which is why he won Pennsylvania by the margin he did it, of 14 points, because he is charismatic, similar to Obama. People surprisingly say he actually sounds like Obama, even though he looks nothing like him, obviously. But still, he wins people on the opposite party, which is why Josh Shapiro, which what makes him so great as a, obviously, politician. One more lean state for Josh Shapiro, Wisconsin. I just don't see a way J.D. Vance possibly pulls off winning this state, especially against Josh Shapiro. Like I mentioned earlier, before the debate, he was literally the most unpopular VP selection in history, like worse than Kamala Harris, and we think Kamala is bad. So with that being said, I just think Josh Shapiro could get skyrocket turnout in Milwaukee County, which is the main reason why Biden won the state in 2020. I think he can actually hold on to Door County for the Democrats, but I do have Trump flipping it in this election. But in 2028, I think Josh Shapiro can do better. Therefore, he's going to win Wisconsin by probably a few points. And then we have the lean states for JD Vance, I think it's going to be Texas. This state, Democrats have been hoping and dying to flip. They just failed to do so in 2018. They thought Beto O'Rourke was going to defeat Ted Cruz. Even though it was close, it did not happen. In 2022, they hoped the same thing, and it actually shattered in their faces. Greg Abbott did tremendous. He won by, I believe, double digits. And in 2020, Donald Trump still hanged on to the state, won by over 5 percentage points. So maybe in 2028, they can get their shot of flipping Texas blue, but I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe past 2032, I can possibly see that. But even if it's Josh Shapiro, it doesn't really matter. The strongest ticket, I just see that JD Vance does. I mean, JD Vance is not that bad to the point where he loses Texas, so he's still going to win it by a few points, in my opinion. And then Florida, I think this is a lost cause for Democrats at this point, no matter the candidate. I think JD Vance will win Florida, and if he doesn't, then that's going to be like atrocious, which I don't think that's going to happen. I don't see Josh Shapiro winning Florida because of the trends and demographics. You take a look at the Hispanic shift in the state, specifically Cuban Americans are really trending towards the right. Even Miami-Dade County flipped from blue to red to DeSantis in the 2022 midterms. I just think the state entirety has abandoned the Democratic Party, so I do have JD Vance winning Florida by a similar amount he does in Texas. And then the tilt states for both of these candidates, which I don't think there will be any tilt states for JD Vance. I think he's going to be locked up at 219 electoral votes. But Michigan will be tilt narrow for Josh Shapiro. A lot of that has to do because of the large uncommitted vote, especially what's happening with Israel, by the way. I just don't think Josh Shapiro is going to be that popular in Dearborn, Michigan at all, with that large uncommitted vote that we saw in, obviously, the 2024 Democratic primaries. Obviously, 100,000 people voted uncommitted against Joe Biden. I don't want to compare that to 2028, but considering that Michigan has the largest Arab population, Josh Shapiro, obviously, as we all know, he is very pro-Israel, which is the complete opposite of most Democrats nowadays. So I don't think he will be that popular in Michigan, which is why I think it would be way closer than definitely Pennsylvania and Wisconsin as well. I also think he will keep Georgia blue for the Democrats. Actually flip it because I actually have Trump winning it in this election. And I think he will also flip North Carolina, which might be a hot take, because Josh Shapiro, just like I mentioned earlier, what does he do? He does not only win the votes of Democrats and independents, but also people in the opposite party, Republicans as well, which is literally what makes him a strong candidate for the Democrats. This literally would be their best case. He won Pennsylvania, which went to Biden by only 1.2%. He won it by 14. That's a 13-point shift further more to the left than what Biden had originally won the state by. And people said that Biden was moderate. If he's moderate and only won by 1 point, what is Josh Shapiro? He will definitely take away a lot of that Republican support away from JD Vance, especially if Trump endorsed JD Vance and he only won because he was endorsed by a small fraction. That means the GOP would be heavily divided, and Josh Shapiro being a strong candidate, the Democrats will be united. Therefore, he gets 319 electoral votes. I think Josh Shapiro would do tremendous in Atlanta, the metropolitan area, the suburbs as well, especially the suburbs, which is really important in the 2024 election and possibly 2028 as well. But the only way Josh Shapiro possibly pulls out a victory in Michigan is through Detroit and the suburbs, especially with that woman vote. But in places like Dearborn, even though it's still a stronghold Democratic county, that's where Josh Shapiro will have his weaknesses. So this is going to be a blowout. The difference in electoral votes was 100. I just don't see how this can be a close election. So I think the Democrats' future is bright, and I do think the Republicans' future can be bright as well, only if they do play their cards correctly by nominating someone like Glenn Youngkin, who is a Republican governor in a left-leaning state. But if they nominate basically an establishment Republican, I think they're going to absolutely lose in 2028. But as for 2024, things are completely different. I think Trump is going to defeat Kamala Harris. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the map in the comment section down below. Do you see a scenario in which Trump endorses JD Vance and he wins by a narrow margin and he goes up against the strongest Democratic candidate, Josh Shapiro? Who you think will win? One last final reminder to subscribe Click the bell so you don't miss all my content. Press the like button. Share this video. Don't forget, if you are interested, we have memberships. You can find links in the description section. That's pretty much it. Thank you everyone for watching.